Tonight on the Fifth Chapter, baseball is back and the playoff field has expanded to 16 teams. Will the Tigers compete for a playoff spot or compete for the chance to draft Kumar Rocker? Another day, another Stafford slappy emerges. But is this national writer onto something when he says Detroit's quarterback has a sneaky quarterback ceiling? And if you thought Cam Newton's wardrobe was crazy, wait till you see what he eats. He's a vegan. Join the conversation by commenting live on YouTube and Facebook Live. This is the Fifth Chapter with Dennis Fithian and Brian Chapman.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth Chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fifth Chapter.
That's right, and welcome to the Fifth Chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fithian. And today is a great day, July 23rd, 2020, because sports are officially back.
Heck yeah, they are. It was great to get things going. Dr. Fauci out there throwing that curve in the dirt to get us going.
Yeah, a lot of not just late action, but early action. Very high spin rate on that curveball.
Yeah, hey, I'm glad he had his mask on.
Yeah, that's right. All right, it's time for episode 22. We've got 5 fantastic chapters for you. Thank you to everybody who is watching on YouTube and Facebook Live, and also for those who are listening via the podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Of course, the podcast is available at around midnight on the day of the show. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and participate in each show by sending in your comments via Facebook Live or YouTube right there on the side. Let's take a look now at today's book. In the second chapter, you got an NFL writer, perhaps he's a Stafford slappy, saying that Matthew Stafford has a sneaky MVP ceiling. We'll tell you why he says that and who that individual is. In the third chapter, Cam Newton is a vegan. You thought his wardrobe was crazy. Could you become one? Dennis and I will react to that. In the fourth chapter, we've got the Indy 500 saying that they're going to allow 25% capacity at that event, and the NFL is considering fans. How many fans should be allowed at these events? And in the fifth chapter, it is story time. Of course, I've got another ride-sharing story for you. And we've also got a bonus. It's not a chapter, but it's a bonus segment. You want to stick that in between the third and fourth chapters, or between the fourth and fifth chapters, Dennis?
Fourth and fifth.
Okay, between the fourth and fifth chapters, we've got a new segment that's going to be a part of each and every show now that sports is officially back. But let's start with the first chapter. And with sports back, with baseball on right now, the Tigers starting their 2020 season tomorrow, we know that their quote-unquote ace, with his plus 4.5 ERA, Matt Boyd, will take the hill tomorrow against the Reds in Cincinnati in a real game. We know it's a 60-game season. We know a lot of people think that in a shortened season, anything can happen. A great team could get off to a slow start and miss the playoffs. An awful team could get off to a hot start and sneak into the playoffs. Injuries perhaps could play a factor. We know that Clayton Kershaw is not going to start today and is on the injured list because of back stiffness. We also found out earlier today that Juan Soto of the world champion Nationals had to be scratched from today's game due to a positive coronavirus test. But folks around here are probably wondering if the Tigers could perhaps take advantage of that, get out to a hot start, sneak into the playoffs. And I was looking at some predictions before today's show, and I saw that according to Bovada, the Tigers' over-under win total is 21.5. Only the Orioles at 20.5 have a lower over-under. According to the CBSSports.com power rankings, the Tigers have are second worst in the majors at 29. Only the Orioles are worse. None of ESPN's 32 experts believe the Tigers will make the playoffs. According to Fangraphs, the Tigers will have the third worst record in baseball at 25-35 with a whopping 3% chance to make the playoffs. But those ESPN playoff predictions and the Fangraph playoff predictions were made before Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball Players Association agreed earlier today to expand the playoffs from 10 teams to 16 teams, from 5 teams per league to 8 teams per league. And we do have some information about how the playoff format is going to look. And I'll put that information up on the screen so that you can see it. These are coming from tweets from Jeff Passan of ESPN. And you'll see that every first and second place team in Major League Baseball will make the playoffs in 2020. So the Tigers don't have to win the division to make the playoffs. And the 2 teams in each league with the best record outside of those 6 will round out the playoffs altogether. Altogether, there will be 16 teams in the playoffs. So basically, there will be 2 wild card teams. The division winner will be the number 2 team in the division, and then, of course, the 2 wild card teams. The 1 through 3 seeds will get to pick their opponent in the playoffs. So if the Tigers have the best record in baseball, then they will get to pick their opponent in that first round, which would be a best of 3. So, Dennis, now that you have that information, and of course, since you've been following the team throughout the offseason, what is your outlook for them this year? 25 wins like Fangraphs says, 30 wins to compete for a playoff spot, or are they going to be competing to draft Kumar Rocker?
Yeah, I think probably that last part there. Like, this team has looked themselves in the mirror. They're not bringing their guys up. They're going into this season, and I think that the Tigers front office is pretty happy that it's only 60 games, and the owner's probably pretty happy it's only 60 games too, so they only have to pay those prorated salaries, and they're going to end up safe in there. You know, this team, look, I hope that we just get through the 60-game season and that we can get to this expanded playoffs. It was crazy that you're coming down to the last day. We got first pitch, and they're waiting to get this new playoff thing ratified here in the 11th hour. I mean, that's nuts. I mean, it was talk about just playing right into the bizarro land of the pandemic and everything. You got the Blue Jays. They're going to play in Buffalo. They're going to play in Baltimore. They're going to play in Pittsburgh. Maybe they're coming up and playing in Lansing. That was all going on today, man. This thing's rushing in, and we just finally get the baseball. The Tigers, the one thing about it is when you project a team, and Vegas had to do it, you're going to look at what you projected a team for 162, and then you're just going to, make those percentages in a 60-game season. That's going to be a tough thing. I think baseball could take a bath if it goes through that way. I don't think the projections are going to hold up. But no, I don't think there's any way. Like 30 games, if the Tigers were going all in, and that would be their ceiling. But I don't think they're going to win 30 games. I think they'll be much closer to 20. They'll be closer to 20 than they would be to 30. I can't believe anybody would think that they would win 30. I guess the case would be 2 years ago. I mean, they were a 99-loss team, and they were pretty close, just a couple games under 500 after 60 games.
Yeah, that would be the argument, and the other argument would be that based on injuries, based on coronavirus, anything can happen. What if Mike Clevenger gets coronavirus for the Indians, a team that the Tigers can never beat? He's their best pitcher. All of a sudden, they become beatable. What if a couple of the sluggers from the Twins have the coronavirus, and then one of their best pitchers has to undergo Tommy John surgery? Then all of a sudden, the top 2 teams in the division become vulnerable. I mean, things like that could happen. But of course, the Tigers have to worry about their own issues. They already have Jordan Zimmermann on the 45-day injured list with a forearm issue. That, of course, according to most fans, according to me, is addition by subtraction, but it's still an injury. I'm like you, though. I think the Tigers are going to be tanking like a no-limit soldier. I say 20-40 will be their record. I think that there's going to be a fierce race, a fiercer race for the number 1 pick than there was last year. Number one, because it's a condensed season, only 60 games as opposed to 162 games. There's going to be a lot more teams with tied records. Their pitching might be a little bit stronger because, like I mentioned, they don't have Jordan Zimmerman, but it's only going to be so much better when you see that Manning and Skubal did not make the team, and they might not make the team at all this year. And you see that Mize didn't make the team initially. I think that there's a good chance he'll be back with the Tigers in a week, but there's no guarantee. They might decide not to bring him up until September. He might get injured again like he did last year. I was looking at the Orioles. They're going to be worse than last year. They're in a stronger division. The Marlins are in a stronger division, so that'll make it tough to get the number one pick in the draft for a second straight year. But just sticking with the Tigers in their division, they've got a strong Twins team in the division. They've got a strong Indians team that's lesser than they have been in the past. A stronger White Sox team that probably makes up for the drop-off in the Indians. The Royals are still going to be terrible, but perhaps better than the Tigers. And then their other opponents are going to be the NL Central. They play the Reds 6 times in the first 2 series of the season. The Cubs, Brewers, and Cardinals are all playoff contenders, and the Pirates are not going to be much of a contender. But those 4 teams in the NL Central that are playoff contenders are not looked at as World Series contenders. So the division is not going to be, or the schedule is not going to be extremely tough. So I think the 20 wins seems about right, and I think their ceiling is still not even going to be at 30 wins. Their ceiling is probably around 25 or 26 wins.
Yeah, you're down on them a little more than me, but it's not like I'm going to put up much of a fight. I mean, this was a team that lost 114 games. This is one of the worst seasons. They're coming off one of the worst seasons in Major League Baseball history. So, to sit around and think about that they could, possibly just win fewer than 20 games. Remember the 2 guys, and they were 2 good signings, Crone and Scope. These guys are on 1-year deals. So you get to August 31st, which is the trading deadline. This team limps out of the gate at 2-8, 3-7, and there's some other teams that get hit with COVID or something around their infield, and they need a bat. The Tigers might be able to pick up something with those guys, and they should. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to be hanging. Once you decide that you're going into this and you're slow playing Mize, and you're just looking at this roster, and you're just. The only hope that you would have is that you would end up being lucky on some kind of, situation where the other teams had guys going down because of, the pandemic. Then, that's your one hope. So, like, you're sitting there at the end of August, very likely, dealing guys away. I already see people and they're with you. DJ saying the Tigers' outlook, terrible. That's coming in on Facebook. It is. It's terrible. It doesn't take away, the tomorrow is going to be fun with the first game, just seeing them out there over the weekend in Cincinnati. I'll be watching all of those games with great interest. And then on Monday, it'll be really weird because it's opening day, and it's always such a big deal here in Detroit. And, it's not like I'm going to go driving down. I'm sure there are going to be some people that'll be tailgating outside of the stadium, but, I'm not going to do that. But that part will be weird.
Well, the bars are closed, so it's not like they're going to be going to bars afterwards, and that's a big part of a lot of people's opening day routine.
Well, I've been down there gone down myself at 8 o'clock in the morning, and there's people already set up for hours. I'd probably get there the night before, talking about on your typical, April opening day. So there'll be some people down there, but yeah, with the bars closed, and you can't go to the ball game. Oh yeah. And I do wonder if they're going to close down the street just beyond center field there, because if not,
fans can peek through.
Yeah, you get about 50 people or so that could probably get up there and try to check out the action. They'll probably want to deter that. Yeah,
because people are not going to want to socially distance. You brought up a good point about the trade deadline. I don't know if Scope is going to be traded away, but based on what I've seen in the intra-squad games, and it's just intra-squad practice games, and he's going up against awful Detroit Tigers pitching. But based on that, C.J. Crone has a shot to be one of the home run leaders in the American League at the end of August. So if that's the case, then Al Avila better trade away C.J. Crone. Now, what you're going to be able to get for a guy that's only going to give you a month plus the playoffs, I don't know. Now, perhaps there'll be a bigger bidding war for a guy like Crone, because if there's 16 teams making the playoffs, then there's likely going to be 20, 22 teams that are fighting to get in or are already in the playoffs, as opposed to 10 teams, in which case there would be maybe 14 teams at the trade deadline or 15 teams at the trade deadline looking to add a bat. So if Al Avila, the problem though is we know Al Avila's track record when it comes to trades. People can argue about, well, is he drafting well, because you can look at Mize, who hasn't pitched at all in the majors, or Manning, who hasn't pitched at all in the majors, or Skubal, who hasn't pitched at all in the majors, and you can talk about the recent first-round pick bats in Green and Torkelson, things like that, but it's unequivocal. The players that he's traded for have not panned out. Either they haven't gotten to the majors yet, like Isaac Paredes, or they have gotten to the majors, like Candelario and Lugo and Rogers, and they're either already busts or they've struggled so far. So I would hope that he would trade Crone away, but I also would not be excited with what he's going to get back, because Al Avila, he doesn't get the best prospects. He gets the throwaway scraps that nobody else wants, the Travis Demerits of the world.
Yeah, already looking in at some more feedback. Raj coming in very disappointed Mize didn't make the roster. How do you guys feel about it? Yeah, well, you know what? The one thing that baseball needs to do, they need to clear up their rules a lot better. I mean, I'm a big baseball fan. I've been watching it my whole life, and I still am sitting here today and I'm not 100% about the rule about if they would have put him on the 40-man roster and his clock would have started, and then in a month they would have put him down.
Well, it's only 6 days this year. If he misses the first 6 days of the season, then he can be on the roster for the rest of the season, and the Tigers can still keep that year of service time.
No, I hear you about that, but what if they started him out and then after a month sent him down to the minors? Would they still be able to get that extra year of service? I never really got 100% clarity. It seems like once you start that clock and get him on the 40-man, but there also seems to be some ambiguity with that. So I don't know. And if there was a chance that you could have brought him up now and then at some point still skip the turn or use that 6 or 7 days and would have been able to save the service time, I would have done that. But you know what? Most of the other teams, and this isn't, to let the Tigers off the hook or anything, most of the other teams, even teams that are looked at to be ones that could win it, they've taken their top prospects and they're doing the same thing. Well, they're putting them on ice.
Yeah, you look at the guy who's – well, no, they're not all putting him on ice. That's not true, because tonight –
not all of them, but some of them have.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Dustin May. He was the number 23 prospect in all of baseball, and the Dodgers initially had him on their practice squad team. But when Clayton Kershaw went down with his injury today, they made him the opening day starter tonight. And then also on Saturday, Brady Singer is going to be starting for the Kansas City Royals. That's not a name that a lot of our listeners and viewers know. But in 2018, the same year that Casey Mize was drafted, Brady Singer was drafted in the first round by the Royals. Now, they could have done the exact same thing that the Tigers did and waited a week to put him on the roster, but they are putting him on the roster to make the second start of the season. So not every team is making the Tigers, is going with the same approach as the Tigers. But Dennis,
I said it a million times. I would have gone and I would have, if he deserved to be in the starting five, I would have put him in there. But, people think it's a no-brainer. The team blows. There's no expectations. People don't care and everything. Let's just keep slow playing it. And, it's frustrating. The rules aren't 100% clear to me. So, to hell with it.
Well, I want to throw this out at you in terms of the Tigers' ability to make the playoffs, because I think that a lot of fans are going to hold out hope at least at the start of the year. But I was looking at FanGraphs projections before the season, and I was looking at them yesterday, and they predict the Dodgers are going to have the best record, but it's going to be at 36-24. So it's not like they're going to be way, way above 500, 42, 45 wins, 36-24. And that would be 11 games ahead of the Tigers' predicted record at 25-35. More importantly, when you look at the Twins, who are supposed to have the best record in the American League Central, Their record is going to be projected at 33-27, only 8 games ahead of the Tigers. And then if you look at the final playoff spot, there's a 3-way tie between the Red Sox, Angels, and White Sox at 500, only 5 games above the projected Fangraphs record. And then when you also consider that the Tigers' start of the season is not loaded with a bunch of heavy hitters. They've got 3 games against Cincinnati, that a team that's supposed to be improved, but not a World Series contender. And then 4 home games against the Royals, the only team likely to challenge the Tigers for the bottom of the AL Central. This first 7 games could be fascinating because if the Tigers play like the Tigers and they get swept by the Reds and split with Kansas City, they're 2-5. And for a team with no talent, their season's going to be over. But if they win 2 out of 3 against the Reds, and then they win, let's say, 3 out of 4 against a bad Royals team, all of a sudden they're 5-2, and you can't help but be intrigued.
Well, you're right. When you have 60 games, these first 10 games, if they go out there and go 7-3, that is going to ratchet up the interest. But if they go out there and go 3-7, you've got, by Tuesday, you've got NFL camps opening up. People will be a lot more interested in that. A week from today, you have the NBA restart. A couple days after that, you got the NHL. So even though there's no Detroit teams in there, the Tigers are going to have you this weekend, man. This is it. They better, to have people.
They can't get swept.
Can't get swept. You got to show some interest. Go out there and start 2-8 out, and talking about in the 10 days. Hey, we're bringing Casey Mize up. Then everybody will be falling asleep by then, and nobody's going to care. Paul on the feedback on Facebook is asking about college hockey, asking us if we think that's going to happen. I would say when you look to the winter sports, they're indoors. That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough to think about hockey playing indoors. Even worse, thinking about basketball, when there's so many teams across the country also playing indoors. But that's so far off. We're just guessing like anything else. I mean, look at today. Baseball, we're getting ready to go, and then here you go, Juan Soto, not able to play for the Nationals. So every day, keeping an eye on it, looking ahead. I hope they're able to play hockey and basketball. So making a prediction that they're not going to is not a lot of fun.
What these schools and conferences are doing are not looking at these individual sports. They're looking at seasons. They're canceling seasons at a time. So I guess maybe with the exception of football, because the Big Ten, I think, said they're going to have a conference-only season for football, not for gymnastics or soccer or whatever other sports are going on in the fall. But I would assume that they're going to take a season-by-season approach. Before we turn the page to the second chapter, give us your World Series pick.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be the Dodgers, and I think it's going to be the Yankees. I mean, those are the 2 best teams. Those are not necessarily the teams that I want to see in there, but they are the strongest teams from top to bottom. Man, I was watching Aaron Judge and Stanton blast that first ball in the center field, man, with a swing against Scherzer, that fastball. That was pretty awesome. And, I'd never seen Aaron Judge until I started watching those Subway commercials when he's there. I never really got a good look at him, but you just see him out there. He's like the head taller than everybody else.
6'7".
But he really is, man. He's all of 6'7". But the Yankees are stacked. Those are the 2. Those are the favorites. Those are the teams that I would pick. However, if I am going to pick one upset out there, I'm going to go to the AL Central. I am not picking the Twins to repeat. I'm not picking the Cleveland Indians either. I'm going to go with the Chicago White Sox to win the Central.
Fast forwarding their rebuild. I'm going with the Dodgers to win the World Series, but I'm going with them to win over the Tampa Bay Rays. I think if there is any year for them to take advantage of what's going on, it's this year, because guess who's most used to not playing in front of fans? It's the Tampa Bay Rays, even more so than the Detroit Tigers, because that nobody shows up to Tropicana Field to play. Plus, they've got elite pitching. So I think that if there's any team that could take advantage of empty stadiums and a weird season best, and Perhaps they could be a team that could go out and acquire a C.J. Crone because they don't have to worry about giving up too many prospects or whatever other guys are out there from bottom feeder teams. I think the Rays could take advantage of it and get to the World Series, but then lose to the Dodgers.
All right, one more feedback coming in here now through YouTube on the live chat. It is from Keith, and it is about the Tigers, and he says, I think the Tigers will probably suck. They just don't have the talent, even in the shortened season. Too many holes in the lineup, but I will watch and hope that maybe they finish around 500. Yeah, 500 is the ceiling, but again, I'm going with 23 and 37, which does have them. You could say that's an optimistic look because that does put them over the Vegas total. So,
yeah, you've got them a game and a half over. I've got them a game and a half under at 20 and 40.
Yeah, we're on opposite sides of that bet.
All right, let's turn the page to the second chapter.
All right, and that gets us to the National Football League, and they are going to report a week, or actually coming up this Tuesday. Everybody's supposed to be in and report. Quarterbacks going to be coming in and injured players this week, even this weekend before that. But there was a story from CBS Sports that says Matt Stafford is a sneaky MVP. He's a sneaky MVP ceiling. He has that ceiling. And we want to know, what do you think that he has a sneaky MVP season? And what is that ceiling for Matt Stafford?
Yeah, and I just put up the article on the screen. And for those of you that hadn't had a chance to read it, some of the things they mentioned is that through 8 games played last year, Stafford was averaging 312.4 passing yards per game, second best in the NFL, 8.6 yards per attempt, second best in the NFL, 106 passer rating, just outside the top 5. And Football Outsiders had him with the 4th best DVOA, which is the amount that you are over the average quarterback in the league. And then they also mentioned that Stafford has weapons of Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones, Danny Amendola, and they just drafted DeAndre Swift, and they expect TJ Hawkinson to emerge next year. But, of course, they mention that Stafford has to stay healthy, which we all know is a major issue for him over the last couple of years, having broken his back twice. This looks like it was written by perhaps one of the last surviving Stafford slappies, perhaps somebody working inside of Allen Park, perhaps somebody working at Ford Field. The guy's name is Tyler Sullivan. Never heard of him before. Look, Stafford got off to a good start last year. Kenny Golladay is a good wide receiver when you want to start talking about weapons. But that's it. You don't win an MVP, and you don't become a dark horse MVP, and you don't have an MVP ceiling based on a resume of over your first 11 years backing into a Pro Bowl or two and having your best weapon as a guy who backed into a Pro Bowl last year. He doesn't have a sneaky MVP ceiling. You can't say that when a guy is struggling to stay healthy. And we also know that over the long haul of a 16-game season, if he does stay healthy, there's periods of greatness and there's periods of poor play. He could play great for 7 games, 8 games, 10 games in a row, and then play like junk for 4 or 5 or 6 games in a row to close out the season, so that overall he's average. I don't think that he has a ceiling of being an MVP player. I think that his ceiling is backing into the Pro Bowl in 2021.
Yeah, I think there's like 4 things that are working against him. One of them is the history of this team. It's been like 100 years since they won the NFC North. You would think that if he had a MVP type season and he would go all the way through, that this team would be competing and probably would win the NFC North. And, predicting that seems ridiculous. I would never predict that, like, even if he was going to have a good season. I think the other thing is his offensive coordinator. I think the honeymoon's going to be over for Darrell Bevell after the first few games. People liking the Lions' offense and what he did and not examining this guy's reckless play calling and a guy that chokes down at the goal line. I do not think Darrell Bevell is a good offensive coordinator, and I think he will be exposed as such again this year. I know that he got some good numbers out of Stafford, and they're below 500 record before he went out. But the end of that Oakland game and that ridiculous play that he called after the timeout in the Arizona game cost him 2 wins. So, I mean, he lost the Super Bowl for Seattle. I'm not jumping up and down about Darrell Bevell. The other thing is his head coach, Matt Patricia. I mean, like maybe this defense is going to come around and get some pressure. But the first 2 years, he looks like he is totally in over his head as a defensive mind and, of course, as a head coach. And then the other thing is that, and you mentioned it a little bit, the biggest thing about Matt Stafford that would hold him back is actually Matt Stafford. Like, I like the guy, and I've seen him have some good stretches, like last year in some games, but I've also seen him, like the year before, him have some disastrous stretches. And even in his best years, you can examine him where he had all those comebacks. You look inside that season and you can say, wow, this is way too inconsistent. And even the 2011 season where you could say, hey, he was an MVP type caliber player, where he had all of those comebacks and he threw for over 5,000 yards. That was a season that it was totally like wildfire, where you just can't sustain that type of play where you're coming back from these gigantic deficits. So, you know what? I like Matt Stafford. He's been a little bit more consistent here, but his own inconsistency, his head coach, his offensive coordinator, and then this organization that's never really done anything does not make me think like he's some sneaky MVP. Like are they a team that could vie for second place in the NFC North? I think they're a sneaky second place NFC North team and an expanded wild card where, you know, they can compete for the playoffs and get everybody back here where 9-7 actually would be good enough. That's the kind of team I think they are.
Well, talking about Matt Patricia, that's a good point to bring up because we know that he is a terrible coach. You talked about him being in over his head. He took a team that was 9-7 and dropped them to 6-10, and then dropped them further to 3-12-1. So based on that trend, they're going to win 0 games this year, which is a pretty same old Lions thing to do. But whether they win 0 games or 5 games, if he's a terrible coach, and he has proven to be such, if the Lions have a terrible defense, and they've had a terrible defense the 2 years they've been here, then you're not going to win games. And last time I checked, if you're an MVP or an MVP candidate, you're not playing for a team that wins 5 games. You're playing for a team that loses no more than 5 games. You're playing for a division winner. You're playing for a Super Bowl contender. Last year, Patrick Mahomes was on, the number 1 or number 2 seed Chiefs, and he won the MVP the season before. And then you look at the Ravens, they had Lamar Jackson, and they had the best record in the AFC. So really the best thing that Stafford has going for him is his position, because he's a quarterback. The last 7 MVPs have been quarterbacks. But just because you are a quarterback doesn't mean that you're going to be in the MVP race. You've got to stay healthy. You've got to be on a good team. You've got to put up big numbers, and you've got to do that for not just 8 or 10 games. You've got to do that for at least 13, if not 14 of the 16 games per season. Stafford can't do that.
Yeah, just way too many ifs. Like, I like the 2 running backs that they have. I don't know about that offensive line in particular over on the right side. I do like some of the wide receivers here. So I think he can put up some pretty big numbers. The defense overall is a gigantic question mark. But the one thing here, I'm actually a lot higher on the Lions record-wise than most people. And, of course, you, where I think they can win 9 games. But you know what? That seems like their high point to me. And talking about – it's just like, you know, talking about Super Bowl or winning the NFC North, I can't go there. Like, every year there's always like, why not the Lions? Well,
because they're the Lions.
Because they never have done it.
Exactly.
Like, if you don't do anything for 100 years, you know, every year people say, well, you guys are really dogging them. Why not the Lions? Well, I'm going to stay there until they, you know, bust through and actually can do things. And you know what? I've seen them have it wrapped up on a silver platter before, with Cutler going down and Rodgers going down. And
is that 2013?
There's been at least twice that they've had chances with injuries inside the division, and the Lions are relatively healthy and they couldn't take advantage. So you're pitting your hopes on Patricia. I'm not doing that. I'm not pitting my hopes on Patricia and the defense, and you know, Darrell Bevell and an inconsistent Matt Stafford.
Well, and here's another factor. We know that Matt Stafford's going to have to deal with 2 new offensive linemen, because Rick Wagner is gone, and they lost the starting offensive lineman. One of the 2 rookies is going to be starting at offensive guard. So there could be some inconsistency there. That Vaitai guy that they got from the Philadelphia Eagles was known, I believe, more as a run blocker than a pass blocker. So if Matt Stafford is dealing with an offensive line that's 40% new, that has not had the offseason to try to gel because they have to socially distance and the pandemic has wiped out OTAs, mini camps, and things like that, and he's coming off of another broken back, then what's Stafford going to try to do? Number one, he's going to be less mobile than he's ever been. And number two, he's going to try to get rid of that ball as quickly as possible because he knows that this novice offensive line is not to be trusted. That's not going to lead him to an MVP caliber season or having an MVP ceiling. It's just not happening.
All right, here's some of the feedback first to the live chat on YouTube. It's Keith, who is like WTH. That guy's pretty high on Stafford. I agree. They have weapons, and we'll put up some good stats. Stafford lost the spot there. Keith, oh, here he is. He's a perennial loser and will not win the big games to be an MVP. Also, Tua. I know Keith, he jumps in each week talking about Tua, and I get that. Remember, I was a truther for a long time. He says Tua's declared himself healthy today for training camp. Trust me, he will be the eventual MVP. That would be very SOL. I've seen the story over and over again in my 40 years with this team. Meanwhile, Ryan says, where would the Lions be if Jim Caldwell was still their head coach? Why don't you go ahead and grab that one?
Well, if Caldwell was still their head coach, I think that they would not have dropped down to 6 wins in his 5th year because they had back-to-back 9-win seasons. In his worst year, even when they started out, 1-7, they still found a way to finish the season 7-9. Jim Caldwell was an experienced coach. He was a solid coach. The team always fought for him. One thing that you have to deal with regard to the Lions and Matt Patricia is a whole bunch of players who want to get out. They hate Matt Patricia. When they leave, they dog Matt Patricia. When Darius Slay was in his last days with the Detroit Lions, he was excited to see that they signed themselves part of his new campaign with PETA, and we want to share that video with you, or at least part of that video with you. Here is Cam Newton on being a vegan.
I've seen such a remarkable change in the way my body responds to the food that I eat. This is Cam Newton, and this is for PETA. I don't want people to think that you can't love food being vegan, or there's not good tasting food that's vegan. And that's completely false. So my burgers, everything that I eat, vegan included, it has to be saucy. So I'm gonna take my pretzel bun, more pickles. I almost forgot my guacamole. And there you have it. The person may ask, how do you get your protein? How do you get your, this, the that, the third? You get it in the same way that they get it. You know what I'm saying? The more cleaner, more fresher way.
That's a good burger.
It's a good burger.
So there you go, Cam Newton on being a vegan. I almost forgot my guacamole. Dennis, what do you think about Cam Newton going vegan? And in general, what do you think about vegans, and could you do that? We know that you're on the 50 and 50. Could you try being a vegan?
Well, I'll take that last part first. Probably not. I don't think so. I've never tried actually for more than a day to go vegan. Mostly, I'm putting protein or animal protein into the diet there, but I don't have the discipline right now to go vegan. But it seems like it would be better for the planet, and it seems like it's a really good diet for people. You don't see many people rolling around, that are 300 plus, talking about I'm vegan. It's usually got people that are in really good shape and, are doing it for their health, and they usually look pretty healthy, and they're doing it for the right reasons. It's not for me. Maybe I should try to work a day or two in there. I do think that, eating more plants is the way to go, eating less and, eating a plant diet. But when you're somebody that's overweight talking about this is what you should do and that's what you should do, it doesn't come off, go ahead. And for Cam, if it makes him feel good, he feels like he's, being able to get enough protein, and he's doing it for all the right reasons, which I think he is, good job, Cam. I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah, look, when I saw Cam Newton in that commercial for PETA and he put that quote unquote burger together, I mean, hey, I got my pretzel bun, gotta get more pickles, almost forgot my guacamole. No, we don't want to see that, Dennis. I mean, when you looked at what he put between the two buns and the burger, it wasn't a burger. It was a whole bunch of side items. It was lettuce, it was tomato, it was onions, it was the pickles. There might have been some other items in there, and those are nice things to have in a burger. You get yourself a good burger, those are nice things to have in there. But where's the meat? Where's the meat? Did he have like a quino patty? I don't know what he had, but that's not for me. But I'll tell you this. I agree with you when it comes to the health aspect because I have a friend of mine, one of my best friends, who went vegan, and I make fun of him all the time for being a vegan. But he was, I met him in high school, and he was always overweight, and now he's a jogger. He's in good shape, so it worked out for him. If somebody wants to do that because they want to get in good shape and they're overweight, I've got no issue with that. But when I hear about somebody being a vegan, and this might be controversial, I always start to have the feeling of a mildly racist father when he finds out that his daughter is dating somebody of a different race. If you're mildly racist and you find out your daughter's dating someone of a different race, you might say, hey, what kind of person is he? Like if you're a mildly racist white person, what kind of black person is he? Is he from the ghetto? Does he speak proper English? Or if you're a mildly racist black person, what kind of white person are you dating? And the reason I say that is because that mildly racist father doesn't despise all people or most people of that race, but he does have some questions about that individual. And the reason I say that is because when I hear someone is vegan, I want to know if that vegan is a vegan bully, because there are a lot of vegan bullies out there that don't necessarily have health issues, that aren't trying to perhaps avoid a heart attack. And when you say that you're not a vegan, which is actually normal to not be a vegan, they want to come out there with all these talking points. They want to bully you or guilt trip you into being a vegan with them. Oh, do you know what kind of abuse that pig had to go through for you to have a bacon strip? Oh, you had to take the innocent life of a fish to put it in your sandwich. Oh, those cows, they're farting so much that they're putting holes in the ozone layer. You're the cause of global warming. They put all that stuff in your face when you're just trying to eat your chicken sandwich in peace. I don't have any tolerance for that kind of vegan bully. The friend of mine that I was talking about, he's not a vegan bully. He's cool with it. He doesn't put all his vegan talking points in your face. But there are too many people out there that want to stuff that in your face and say, oh, the poor innocent animal, the cows are farting. Have you tried a veggie burger? No, this tastes good and you know it. I'm eating it. I'm not trying to force a sausage down your throat, so don't try to force a quino patty down mine.
Yeah, they say like those Impossible burgers and all these other things taste pretty good. I mean, I just haven't tried one, so I can't take their word for it. Or I guess I can take their word for it. I'm just if I'm going through the drive-through at BK, like I did about 2 weeks ago, and I rolled up there and I saw the Impossible burger. I didn't think, let me try one. I went for the 2 for $6. I went for the chicken sandwich and I went for the Whopper, the real one. It was weird looking at the sign though, because you look up there and it says 0% beef. It's like, what?
Then I don't want it.
100% taste. Like, get that out of there. I don't want that. Let's go to the next chapter. It's making me hungry. I'll tell you that much. Well, we do have baseball, and there were no fans in the stands in Washington. I didn't see any. I was looking around. I saw one guy, going after the home run ball. Like, he looked like he worked there, and was just sitting out in the concourse. But there have been at NASCAR races, we have seen some fans, and the Indy 500 said they're going to be at 25% capacity, and now Major League Baseball has at least talked about the idea, and so too is the NFL, saying that you got to get in there and you got to wear masks when they're going to consider fans coming up here in the fall. Hey, I hope they're able to do it, but where are you at here, Ryan? I know we've got a couple different videos and a couple things to look at when it comes down to the possibility of some fans going to the games in the fall.
Yeah, in terms of the Indy 500, not only are they talking about a 25% capacity there, but they also mentioned that there are going to be temperature checks at all track entrances, packaged food at concession stands, and hand sanitizer is going to be distributed to everybody or can be used by anybody in attendance at the Indy 500.
Will there be vegan choices up at the refreshment stand there?
You know what? If they want to give vegan choices, that's fine. I just know that I won't be doing that. And let me give you a quick story. This is actually very important considering that today is opening day. 2 years ago, I went to opening day at Comerica Park with my dad. And before we sat down in our seats, we went to get some food. I chose to get myself a burger and fries, a hamburger and fries. As we're walking through the aisle to get to our seats, we passed by this man and this woman, and they're like, hey, and they're kind of joking, hey, if you want to get by, you got to pay a tax. You got to give us a fry. And I just kind of laughed. I was like, yeah, it's not happening. Just kept on going. My seat was right next to the woman, and she's like, yeah, so you're going to give me a fry? Like she was, I guess, serious. So because I wanted her to stop being annoying, I picked up a fry and I handed it to her. And instead of taking it, she went for it like this with her mouth so that I could put it in her mouth and feed it to her like I was her lover, which was obviously kind of awkward. And then she kind of laughed. So
How'd she look?
She was all right. I mean, she was a little older. She was probably 43, 45 years old, something like that. But she was all right. But she had a man there, so I mean, but anyway, after I ate my fries, I went for my burger and I took my first bite, and then this woman next to me says, "Are you eating a veggie burger?" And I said to her, "I sure hope not." And she's like, "Well, why would you want to eat an animal? Do you know what that animal could have gone through? Why not try a veggie burger?" I said, "Have you ever tried a hamburger?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, it's good, isn't it?" "Yeah." I said, "Okay." And that's the thing. That's the way you have to deal with these vegan bullies, because I could tell that she was about to be a vegan bully to me. She was trying to guilt trip. She had all of her talking points ready. But when I stuck it in her face and said, you know that you like hamburgers and they taste good, that was pretty much it. And then, an inning or two later, she and her little man walked away to another section, and that was that. I digress.
I think she was flirting with you.
She might have been, but I would assume it was a big turnoff when I told her that I like to eat meat products and I have no tolerance for vegan bullies like her. Anyway, getting back to this attendance issue. In addition, in the NFL, they're saying that if there are fans have to wear masks. And at the Atlanta Falcons Stadium, they announced that they'll allow between 10 and 20,000 fans into Mercedes-Benz Stadium this fall, if fans are allowed. But in terms of fans at stadiums, I still have mixed feelings about sports returning because we haven't crushed this coronavirus pandemic. We had our 4 millionth positive test today. We've had over 1,000 deaths for the second straight day. Perhaps it'll be a third straight day today. And sports are going to be a distraction. And if fans are going to games, it'll be even more of a sign that things are on the right path when they clearly are not. But I don't think we need to have any fans at games right now when we're having 70,000 new infections per day. And the goal is to try to shrink those numbers, not just level it off at 70,000 a day. We've got them in a lot of big cities like Miami, LA, Dallas, Houston, Phoenix. There was a conference call with Dr. Birx today saying that there are new hotspots popping up in Indy, Cleveland, Columbus, Minneapolis, Baltimore, Miami, St. Louis, and some other places. And those are all big cities that either have pro sports, major college sports, or both. And a lot of those places have multiple teams. So I don't think that it's a right idea to try to get 20,000 people in the stadium right now. It's way too many.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I mean, they can make the plans and then pull the plug. I mean, it's not like if there was a game coming up this Sunday that you would have some fans there in an outdoor stadium, although they are doing a little bit with NASCAR. So it is something to take a look at. But, they're not going to do it in the NBA. They're not doing it in the NHL, and they're not doing it in baseball right now. So I think, you put down the plans. It reminds me a little bit of college football right now. They're reporting to go through some walkthroughs starting tomorrow. They're 20 countable hours, and this is kind of a walk before you run, and then they're going to get in there and they're going to start practicing, and we're going to get some news about tests and positive tests and all of that as they try to acclimate. But, we really know what's going to happen. It's going to be like 2-3 weeks from now. And if they get some students back there, I mean, you make your plan. I don't feel really good about there being a college football season coming up this year, but you go through the process here of trying to get ready, and right up to the point, maybe they'll end up pulling the plug and they won't play or anything else. It's the same thing with the fans here. Go ahead, make the plans, because if all of a sudden things do turn around, you at least have to, try to put yourself through the paces so you'd be prepared if they do that, because it would mean so much money. But no, I think that's just what they're doing here. It would be great. Well, it'd be great to be able to get some fans in there. I just don't expect it to happen.
It would, but when you talk about if things turn around, what should happen? Look at South Korea. We know that their numbers for coronavirus deaths and total cases have been way below what they are in the United States of America. I think they've had, matter of fact, I know they've had less than 1,000 deaths since the pandemic started, and they still don't have fans because they're trying to be extra careful about it. So for us to go from 70,000 cases per day to maybe 10,000 and then say, all right, let's go 50% capacity, that just seems to show more of the same recklessness that we've shown the entire time. If we were going to have fans, I think that it should be at 10% capacity, because then you could have real social distancing. If you do 50%, you're still going to have people next to each other, high-fiving each other. If you're at 10% capacity, then if you go with your family, there's not going to be anybody around you within 10 or 15 feet, which is good social distancing. And if you're worried about the ambiance of the game and how it can affect the players, if you got 0 fans at Comerica Park, then there's not going to be any effect outside of the ambiance of the piped-in crowd noise. But if you have 4,100, which is 10% of a packed Comerica Park, when there's a deep fly ball, then there's going to be some crowd noise. If there's a strikeout and 4,000 people are cheering, you're going to hear at least a little something. If there's a 2-out double to take the lead, you're going to hear at least something. But we don't need to go to 20, 25, 30%.
Yeah, I think the other thing you got to worry about competitive balance. Like if Big Gretsch decides that we're not going to have any fans at football games, and Michigan opens up on September 26th with Penn State with a condensed, front-loaded Big Ten East schedule, and Michigan doesn't have any fans in there. And then later on in the year, they got to go down to Ohio State, and Ohio's pouring in 50,000 people or whatever. And how fair is that?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in the NFL. Well, the Jets and Giants, they're not having any fans. Meanwhile, the Dolphins are talking about getting 25,000, 30,000 people in there. You play a home and home. That's not fair.
Yeah, then you're going to have teams that are going to be lobbying the governor and saying, hey, we want to win a Super Bowl or a Big Ten championship, or we want to win the World Series. So can you help us to get a home field advantage or a home court advantage by allowing us to have 10,000 fans in there? Because we got a big game against the Packers this weekend, and we're 3-3 so far. We need to have a home field advantage at Ford Field to make the playoffs. Come on, Big Gretsch. Are you a Packers fan?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, think about the the Giants and Cowboys. We know that the Giants aren't allowing any fans at their stadium. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but if Dallas is hosting the Giants late in the year, and we know down in Texas they want to have people down in Arlington and in Cowboy Stadium down there, no fans, and the Cowboys go in and they beat the Giants, and they have this game that's towards the end of the year, and they're like, hey, we want to get 50,000 people. I mean, that's just not fair. I mean, they got to do something. Roger Goodell's got to do something in there, and Kevin Warren, the Big Ten commissioner, also has to do something. It's not superseding the governors of each state and where the Big Ten's at, but you got to level that playing field, and that's where it's going to come down. What I would think that whatever the lowest amount. I know Rutgers said that their capacity for their fans will be 500. Well, if that's the capacity for Rutgers, that should be the capacity for everybody else, even though Rutgers, we know is not going to win a game this year.
And they'd still struggle to get 500 fans to go to a Rutgers football game.
Well, that's right. What are they going to do with the other 278 seats that they get?
Yeah. Well, the only way they get to 500 is for the opponent's fans to go to the games, because we know that opponent's fans would love to travel, although there's less of a reason to visit New York City right now with everything being closed down.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. People want to know if that's a vintage Country Day jersey back there.
Yeah, that's the Detroit Country Day jersey that I wore as a high schooler. So I figured with today being opening day, with tomorrow being opening day for the Tigers, that it made sense to have not one but two baseball jerseys in the background. And I know that I've been getting some bad feedback on the Reds Griffey jersey, so I thought about using that one today, but went with the Country Day jersey.
Keith says indoor stadiums like Ford Field have the potential to easily spread the virus. With ventilation, I would consider not going to any indoor venue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there was only about 6,000 people that attended the Make America Great Again rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we saw that a couple weeks after that rally, the numbers started to go upwards in Tulsa. So if you have 6,000 people in Tulsa that can make it go up, and you say that 6,000 people is 10-15% of Ford Field, you can see that even that number could have it fill up. Now, they did have just about 0 people in the upper deck, and they weren't social distancing, but you don't need to have a packed house to have the Rona spread.
That's right. That's right. So now we're getting on to our gambling here, aren't we?
Yeah, this is not a chapter, but this is a new segment that we're going to be adding between the 4th and 5th chapter of each show, because we've got sports back, and that means we've got sports betting back. So we'll be giving you some major wagers that you can choose to use at your own discretion. We're not going to support or not support sports betting, but if you choose to do so, here are some of our picks. Dennis, what are your major wagers for today?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to look at the futures, and those are the over and unders in Major League Baseball. With a 60-game season here, I think Vegas could take a bath. I thought about going to the bottom 5 and top 5, but I'm only going to just go with the top 2 and bottom 2, and that's the Dodgers and the Yankees. Even though I think they're going to get to the World Series, I don't think that they're going to eclipse their over total, so I'm going to go under on both the Dodgers and the Yankees, and I'm going to go over on the Yankees and Orioles. So I'll be rooting for the...
You mean the Tigers and Orioles?
What did I say?
Yankees and Orioles.
Yeah, Tigers and Orioles. I'll be looking for the over, and I'll be looking for the under on the Dodgers and the Yanks. That's what I would bet today. I would consider doing it for the top 5 over totals going under, and the bottom 5 lowest totals I would consider going under. But I'm only going to do the 2 on the bottom and the 2 on the top. So those will be 4 bets that I'm putting down. By the way, on Facebook, I like when people use you press the little hearts and they kind of go floating up. That always just makes me feel good.
All right, well, I'll take that too. Keep in mind, though, that last year the Tigers had one of the lowest over-unders in baseball and fell well short of that. But Dennis is taking the over on the Tigers, the over on the Orioles, the under on the Dodgers, and the under on the season for the Yankees. For me, I'm gonna go with the other baseball game tonight. Of course, the Yankees and Nationals are playing right now. The Dodgers are playing the Giants later today, and the Dodgers, if you take the run line at -1.5, they're -155 favorite, even giving up the 1.5. And the only other game I was considering doing right now, because I thought we were only going to do one game, but I guess if we're going to do 2, I would have taken the Tigers to just lose straight up. But I'm going to pick one game, and it's the Dodgers against the run line at -155. I was seeing that Fangraphs predicts that the Giants are going to be tied for the 6th worst team in baseball, so they've got a weak roster. While there was a lot of controversy today about who's going to be the starting pitcher for the Dodgers, Clayton Kershaw went down with back stiffness, and now they have to bring up the number 23 overall prospect in baseball, Dustin May, to take his spot. The Giants are going with Johnny Cueto, not as their 4th or 5th starting pitcher, but as their opening day starting pitcher. He's coming off of his 3rd straight year with an ERA above 4.50. Last year it was 5.71. That's almost like having Jordan Zimmerman as your opening day starter. He's been injured each of the last 2 years, only 69 total innings the last couple of years. Dustin May is basically their Casey Mize, except for the fact that he has some major league experience. He pitched in 14 games last year, 3.63 ERA. Let's also, when we talk about the Giants, remember that Buster Posey is one of the players that opted out of the season. He's won an MVP in the past. He opted out of the season because of the coronavirus. And Fangraphs says that without Buster Posey, the Giants have the fourth worst group of catchers in baseball. The Dodgers have this stacked lineup. They're sick and tired of coming up in second place or winning the division and not winning the World Series. They are going to lay the smackdown on the Giants tonight, with or without Kershaw. If you at minus 155, if you were to bet $50, you make a $32.26 profit if it hits. So that's our major wagers for the day.
It all sounds very reasonable, but I'll be rooting against you since I have the Dodgers and the under. So,
well, that makes sense. Our
go
money,
Cueto.
Our money is not aligned, at least for tonight. All right, now let's turn the page to the fifth chapter, and that means it's story time. I have another ride-sharing story for you, but first, it's the man, the fifth, the legend, Dennis Fithian.
Yeah, I don't know if you know who my favorite all-time Tiger is. Do you?
Is it Jack Morris?
It is not Jack Morris, but he played on the same team. You know, I
Gibby.
didn't, or say it's not Gibby.
Trammell?
Nope.
Whitaker?
No, it's not Whitaker. He
Petrie?
trusted me for a picture one time at the airport.
Who is
No,
it?
it was the center fielder Chester Lemon.
Oh, you've said that before.
He's my favorite all time, and being opening day, really, you know, Monday's the day where you get all, romanticized because it's Detroit. But since it's a pandemic and they're finally getting it going, and I was looking for something for story time, I just looked down and I had a few baseball cards of Chester Lemon, and here he is. There's one of old Chet there. He's standing at the plate. Actually, this one on the back is a very good one where he's standing on the plate. Here's a close-up of Chester Lemon, and here's another one there. And that's my story time. Chester Lemon going up. He would wait to the last second, snag the ball. Chet Lemon, my favorite. There it is. Story time for me.
I used to go to the Chet Lemon baseball camp when I was a kid.
He's the only athlete that I've ever sent I was going to say any type of letter, but it was a handwritten letter. I penned to Chet Lemon back in the day. This is a long time ago, but they had said that he was ill, and it sounded pretty serious. So I wrote him a letter and was like, hey, Chet, get well and all that. You're my favorite, and sent it off. And that's it.
All right. Well, last night for my story time, as many of you guys know, I drive for Uber and Lyft, and I was driving around, and I pick up this guy at about 3:30 in the morning, and I asked him if he was going to work, and he said, no, I'm just going to pick up some weed and come right back. They don't deliver this time of night, and one thing I've had to get used to, I don't use drugs, I've never smoked weed, but now that it's illegal, not just for medical purposes, but for recreational purposes, I have to help people do their weed runs now. And so we weren't going to a dispensary, we were going to a residence. And for people out there that don't know, it is illegal to sell drugs out of your house, but they don't really enforce it. And from people that I've talked to, it is cheaper to buy drugs from the neighborhood dope man than it is from getting it at the dispensary. Apparently, it's a lot more expensive at the dispensary. So we drove to this residence about 2 miles away. But right after he got in the car, he started venting. And a lot of people do that when they get in my car. They vent. Sometimes there's something there that I have to gently pull out of them. And sometimes they just go off and I don't really have to say anything. And he was in that second group. And he said that he needed to get rid of his baby mama. He said, I'm putting her on a Greyhound. And I said, well, I said, why? He said, she doesn't do anything. He said that they have, I don't remember if he said they have or she has, but he mentioned that there's a 16-year-old daughter in the mix, and the daughter contributes more to the house than the baby mama does, so he was going to put her on a Greyhound. And he said he didn't believe in busting a woman in the lip, so he was just going to go buy his weed so he could calm down, and then he was going to put her on a Greyhound, I guess, in the morning. And I told him it was a good idea not to punch his baby mama. He said he's never done so. He was raised by some strong black women, but sometimes he wants to, and that's why he's got to just put her on a Greyhound. He said that one of the issues that he has with her is that she steals from him. And so obviously I asked, what does she steal? He said, oh, everything. Money, guns, whatever I leave out. And so I told him that he needed to call Officer Barbrady. And he said, who's that? So obviously he wasn't familiar with South Park, because whenever I'm driving around and there's a police officer, or we talk about the police, I say Officer Barbrady. But I said, you need to call the police. And he said he didn't want to see her in jail. And I said, well, if you don't want to see her in jail, or if she keeps on stealing, then, or if you're not going to send her to jail, then she's going to keep on stealing your stuff. And it is partly your fault. He said it was partly his fault for leaving it out. And I said that it wasn't, because just because you leave your stuff unlocked doesn't mean you have the right to steal things. If I leave my apartment door unlocked, that doesn't mean that people have the right to just ransack the place and take whatever they want. And so he agreed, and he once again brought up that he didn't want to hit her. And I said that, look, you got to send her to jail. You need to act like Donald Trump, lock her up. And he thought that was kind of funny. But we pulled up to the dope house. He got out. He went to the side door. He made his purchase. And then he got back in the car. He's like, hey, you got $10? And I said, no, because I don't give my riders any money. He said, well, I need to go back in there with $10 more because he's got that funk. and obviously that meant some really good weed that he wanted to purchase. And he said that if I gave him $10 so he could go buy that funk, then we could stop at ATM on the way back to his house, and he'd give me $20, so I'd make a $10 profit out of it. And I said no, because if I did that, then I'd have to trust him. And he was begging me because he really wanted that funk. And I said, look, if you want, I could drive you to the ATM so you could go get some money, and we could come back here. And he's like, oh, I don't want to do that. Just take me home. So on the way back home, he continued to complain about his baby mama. He kept on saying, I just want to put her on the Greyhound. And I said, well, where are you going to send her? And he said, I don't care, just getting her out of the house. And I said, and she said, or he said that her mom lives in Grand Rapids. Perhaps she could go to Grand Rapids. She's got another daughter that lives somewhere else. Perhaps the Greyhound will go there. But it didn't matter. She was getting on the Greyhound. I said, look, you can't force a grown adult to just get on a Greyhound. That's got to be her choice. And he said that he didn't care. It was his residence. All he knew was that she was getting out of there. But as we pulled up to the house, he dropped another bomb for why he wanted her to get on the Greyhound. Because he said, I didn't even get to the cheating part. And I said, oh, she cheated on you? He said, yeah, with my son. And before he could continue, I said, wait, what? With your son? And he said, yeah, with my son, with my brother, and my cousin. And I said, but you still stayed with her? He just kind of sighs like, yeah, I should have left long ago. And I said, well, hey, did you cheat on her? He said, no. And so that was the end of the conversation. He got out of the car so he could smoke his funk and get ready to put his baby mama on the Greyhound bus. But he didn't like that the baby mama wasn't doing anything, and that she wasn't just interested in having sex with him. She wanted to have sex with all of his male family members.
Well, the one thing you could tell is that he wasn't being very honest, and he would not have given you that money back because, if he had any money, how's he going to put that woman on a Greyhound if he doesn't have any money? He's going to have to borrow it from you. So.
Yeah. Well, I guess he could have gotten it at the ATM, but...
People are calling you cheap on the feedback. Give the man some 10 for some funk. All right. Coming up on Tuesday, the Tigers will have...
Guilty as charged.
The Tigers will have played 4 games. Well, they have notched a victory. That's what we'll get to on the 5th chapter on Tuesday.
The bar is low. Don't get swept.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state when that light turns red. So don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fith chapter. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spittin' the facts, bruh. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fith chapter.